Hey guys, this is Belf from Team Kaiser Vanguard coming at you with a premium Spike Brothers deck tech deck profile. So this is the Bad End Dragger Not So Combo build. So first off, you have to play 4 copies of Bad End Dragger V. This is the most important card in the deck. It facilitates all of your good end stride combos, it gives you your multi-attacks, it has a force marker. This card is excellent. And to facilitate the combo, we're also playing 3 copies of Dead Heat Bull Spike. This is a fantastic first ride if you want to take first grade 3. It is very strong if, it's amazing as part of the stride combo, which we'll go into in a minute. It is by itself card advantage. It forces your opponent to guard specific attacks in the early game, especially if you can stack crits or if you can put crits on a rear guard that you can maybe restand. Very, very strong. And then I'm also sort of playing 2 copies of Hivemaker. This isn't intended to be ridden. It is more as a combo extender for during your good end turn. It's especially strong during a Dirty Picaro turn. If you do end up having to ride it, it does have an on-ride ability. But yeah, I'm a fan of this ratio, but if you aren't, you can very easily cut 2 copies of this, play a 4th Bull Spike. And then that also opens up another grade 1 or another grade 2 slot. So, for the grade 2s, playing 4 copies of Spike Bouncer. This is your intended grade 2 ride. It gives you a +1 when you ride it. And if you end up doing your Hellhard 8 combo turn, this is a fantastic extender. It basically pays for itself. It is a little bit counterblast heavy, but you are more than able to refund that cost later on in the game. Speaking of combo cards, we're playing 4 copies of High Speed Bracky. This is not really a combo card. This is just, you call it, it's a 20k beat stick, and you can get rid of it with your other Spike Brothers charge combo abilities. I'm a big fan of this card. It's excellent early pressure. And then we're playing 3 copies of Powerback Ronaldo. You gotta get SPs. This card is awesome. A lot of this deck's costs are Soul Blast based, so being able to take a card from your hand and put it into your soul not only gives you soul to use later on in the game, but it refunds itself as well because you're effectively turning 1 card in hand into 2 cards on the board. This card is also fantastic during your later stride turns, and I am a big fan of this. And then to round out the grade 2s, I'm playing 1 copy of Heat Element Bobo. It's good against those damage denial games because this deck does need a lot of counterblast to function. If you do not want to play Hivemaker, I would recommend playing the 4th copy of Bull Spike and then playing a 2nd copy of Bobo. You need this card if your opponent damage denies you because everything costs a counterblast in this deck. Sure, you can unflip stuff using, you can play the unflip heal triggers, but other than that, you need to give yourself damage. Anyway, for the grade 1s, we're on 4 copies of Offensive Punter. This is your ideal grade 1 ride. It is fantastic pressure. It gives you itself back when you ride it, and then you can Soul Blast, put it back into the deck, and refund itself and you draw a card. This card is excellent, and I wouldn't say you want to try and hard mulligan for this, but you want to try and see this card as often as possible. We're then on 4 copies of Gyro Slinger, just because this card turns a card from your hand into a random card off the top of your deck. You don't really want to use this guy's skill if you're going first, or if you're trying to do this in the early game, because more than often than not, you will just call something that's either GB locked, or it's going to be a trigger that you would rather hit off the top of your deck anyway. And you aren't playing cards like Juggernaut Maximum, where calling that to rearguard off this is a really, really strong early game high roll. Being able to fuel your soul again, you play this for a lot of the same reasons that you play Ronaldo. It fuels your later game combos. And then to round out the grade 1s, we're on 4 copies of Commander Gary Gannon. I love this card. So whenever the attack that this thing boosts hits a Vanguard, you can put this into your soul, draw 2, and then choose a card from your hand, put it on the bottom of your deck. What this means is if you're setting up for a Hellhard 8 combo turn, you can use this for pressure, take your Hellhard 8 combo piece that you want in the deck to call out next turn, and put it back in the deck while still getting 2 cards. This also fuels your soul, and it is amazing early game pressure and amazing early game filtering. This card is a sleeper hit in this deck. And then the last actual main deck card we are playing is 1 copy of Mecha Analyzer as our starter. I've been going back and forth on playing this or playing the V-Series Mecha Trainer, but using this as an extender during a kill turn is fantastic. So GB1, you put this into your soul. When your other rearguard is put to your deck, you pay the cost, put this into your soul. If you do choose up to one of your other rearguards, you bind it, and then you call it to open rear and it gains 3k. So you basically reset something, and if you have, say, something like a Ronaldo, you have something like a Spike Bouncer, you can trigger their skills again and just help refill yourself with a free board. I adore this card, but considering the current metagame, and we might be going into more of an early game rush meta if Zazan doesn't get banned, I can very easily see this getting replaced with V-Series Mecha Trainer. I did consider original Mecha Trainer, but I just feel like, since this isn't really a combo deck, I don't really have the spare counterblasts to go and search for a heal trigger. That's more for the Hellhard 8 kind of combo deck, as opposed to this more standard plus mid-range sort of deck. Anyway, onto triggers. We're playing 4 Premium Collection 19 crits. These are, I'm playing Rainbow, personally, so I'm also playing 4 of the best stand trigger in the game. We'll get into this in a minute. 4 V-Series heals and 4 VPG draws. Now, this stand trigger, I have to talk about this stand trigger. Mecha Instructor is arguably the lifeblood of this deck. So there is a very specific combo that you can do where you perform a double break ride, and if you have this, it equals about 6 or 7 attacks, all of which have 3 force markers behind them. This card is incredible. So it has the charge ability on rearguard, and it has the other auto ability, GB1. You choose a card from your hand and put it into your soul, and when you put this into your deck from rearguard, it doesn't have to be charging. You may pay the cost, and then if you do, choose one of your rearguards, you bind it, and then you recall it. So it's a lot like Mecha Analyzer, except this, you can put it into the deck with other skills, as opposed to having to use this as an extender. I absolutely love this card, and I don't think that there is a single Spike Brothers deck that should not be playing 4 copies of this. This card is fantastic. Anyway, that's the entire main deck. I just want to take a second to talk about Force Gifts. You do not want to play Force 2, ever. You always want to go Force 1. The only time I've ever gone Force 2 is if I've crit my opponent to death in the early game, they are stuck on 5, and we are literally just making 5 or 6 attacks that are 2 crit. You always want this for the pressure. Anyway, onto the G-Zone. We play 1 copy of Divine Hand Good End Dragger. So, the way that the Break Ride combo works after you attack with this guy is you need to have these in your deck. So, let's say that you are on Bad End, because you have to be on Bad End for the combo to work. You stride this, you attack, pay the Counterblast, you then take 2 cards from your hand, put them into your soul, search your deck for a copy of Bad End and a copy of Bull Spike. This returns to the G-Zone. You Break Ride this Bad End, call this to an open circle here, only if you have units on these 4 circles of your board that this combo will work, by the way. You then get a Force Gift, you put it over here, and you retire everything in this column. You can then second Break Ride this Bull Spike, call this here, get another Force Marker to this column, retire everything here, and then these attacks are 38 with a crit potentially, and you have Bull Spikes on, on miss ability. This is why we play this deck. This card is actually obscene with the new V-Series Bad End Dragger, and I love this. It costs a single Counterblast to get 6 very strong attacks, and you generate 3 force markers. What is not to like about this? You do need to have a full board to resolve this combo, and you do need to use at least 2 cards from your hand and putting them into your soul, but I am a massive, massive fan of this. For other strides, we're playing 2 copies of Bull Power Aggregus. If you end up having to ride Bull Spike or Hive Maker, this is probably your best early game stride. I am a massive, massive fan of this card. It lets you bind cards, recall them, refresh your on-place abilities, and you gotta play SPs. They look really nice. 2 copies of Violence Ace. If you do end up having to take the first grade 3 turn, you can use Violence Ace after you've G-guarded and flipped up some G units. This then replenishes hands after you've been rushed, and it also gives you a lot of recursion, because whenever your opponent calls 2 or more cards, You can Counterblast one, put a rearguard into your soul, and you get to call a card from your hand to rearguard. This card is awesome. Also, all of the extra soul that we're building up throughout the game, we can spend on this to give a unit 10k. Repeatedly. We're on 2 copies of Great Hero Rising Supernova. Whenever we get damage denied throughout the entire game, like if we have no spare counterblasts for any of our combos, this is probably the best stride to go into. It doesn't really do much. It gives you a free triple drive, gives you a free GB. It flips itself without actually needing to pay any of the costs, so this does accelerate your GB count. And its skill does occasionally come up. Like it makes a few other of your cards like charging, so you can use that to proc Hive Maker. You can use that to proc Mecha Trainer or Mecha Analyzer, and you can use that to proc Mecha Instructor. This is more or less a flex card. 1 Hellhard 8. If you ever get to GB8, you stride this, win the game. 1 Dirty Picaro. I don't usually go into this because it costs Counterblast 2, and if you have 2 Counterblasts, you probably win the game. So what this card lets you do for 2 Counterblasts is it lets you just build a board. It's very, very strong when you're behind, but you don't generally want to be behind in this deck, because then it's a constant uphill struggle trying to win. For other strides we're on, for the more tech strides, we're on 1 Seabreeze. Some of your best stuff is GB locked. This is more or less just to unlock Mecha Analyzer if you have to take first grade 3 and you have to be able to G-Guard. And you also need this because you are playing a very strong G-Guard that is GB1 restricted, so you might need to use this just to unlock that. We're also on 1 Progenitor Dragon of Gloomy Dark Formido. This card is not super great, but I'm playing it just because I have the space, and it soul charges 5 occasionally. Anyway, then onto our G-Guards. We are on 2 copies of King of Interference Terrible Linus. This thing is our best G-Guard. It flips another, but you have to be on GB1, which is why this deck does not mind taking first stride, usually. For every open rearguard, it gains 10k after you flip, and you can choose one of your rearguards, and you put it into your soul. This card is usually a 35k shield. 1 Hecatongeus. You use this to recycle your pieces from the drop zone. I really, really, really enjoy this card. Like, you need to play 1... I've considered going up to 2 copies of this, just because you can choose combo pieces from your drop zone, triggers, put them back in your deck. And then we're on the 2 tech G-Guards of 1 Dismal, because occasionally you have rear guards that you need to keep safe, and 1 Ratcomb, because sometimes you just need to filter out bad cards and play into better cards. Anyway, this was Belf from Team Kaiser Vanguard. Any questions, just leave them in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.